Welcome, everyone. I'd like to convene this meeting of the Westborough Select Board today, Tuesday, October 10th, here at Memorial Hall. If you are so able, please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And as a reminder, this meeting is being live streamed and recorded by Westborough TV. With that, we move to open forum. Do we have anyone here for open forum? Seeing no one. We will move forward to our second agenda item, the purchase and sale agreement for 12 Union Street, Building 1500.
So you have in your packet the purchase and sale agreement under several of the terms that the board is aware of and has discussed in executive session. We do have Sharon Everett here who's able to walk through this for you, or if you just want to ask her questions. I think she had intended to walk through as that was requested. So Sharon, do you want to walk through the P&S, the terms of the P&S? There she is.
Sure. Good evening. Thanks for having me. So the purchase and sale agreement is fairly standard, and I'll just go with the major terms. So with respect to the closing date, we are going to close in March 15th, provided that the Boston Sports Club has vacated the premises. If they haven't vacated the premises, the sellers can extend up to July 1st of next year. And if they fail to vacate the premises by July 1st, then the town has the right to terminate the agreement if it so wants. Then there are various standard provisions. There are provisions giving the town the right to do its inspections of the property. It has the right to do physical inspections up until November 30th, and it has the right to review the title to the property until the end of October. And in terms of the title research, we've gotten it started, so we expect the research to come in fairly soon, and we'll have it well before the title inspection deadline. And I believe that the town has already started doing its physical inspections, and that deadline runs to November 30th. The purchase and sale agreement is subject to standard conditions that must be satisfied before the town will purchase the property. One such provision is that the town is satisfied with the condition of the property. So if the improvements or the property are not in satisfactory condition, the town has the right to terminate without recourse, which means each party goes back and the town has no right to purchase the property but has no obligations either. The same happens if town meeting does not appropriate the funds or authorize the purchase. So it's expressly contingent on town meeting. And as you already know, there is a indemnification obligation agreement that runs with the property, so that if the town buys the property, it's going to be subject to that indemnification agreement. And I know that we discussed this previously, but would you like me to explain what that indemnification provision provides?
That would be helpful, thank you.
Okay. So the current owners of the property, when they purchased the property, they entered into an agreement. And as you know, the property has been heavily inspected, and there were historic releases of hazardous materials from the property. And the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection has been heavily involved in researching the extent of the contamination. And the former owners of the property have undertaken years of remediation to make sure that the property is habitable and usable. And in connection with that, the landfills on the site have been closed. I don't think any of the landfills are going to be on the town property itself, but there are closed landfills, which is capped by all the paving that you see around the shopping center. There are also other areas that they've been contamination, but that contamination has been remediated and cleaned up to the satisfaction of the state's office, the Department of Environmental Protection. But when the former owners of the property wanted to sell the property, the current owner agreed that if there are any claims that come forward in the future, by third parties or by DEP, then the current owner will step in and indemnify them and defend them from against such claims. And, there's, the property has been extensively researched, so we know the extent of contamination. We also know that there's been considerable work done to remediate the contamination, and the risk of a third-party suit or a suit by the state is very unlikely. But the current owner agreed that if any of these former owners are sued by the state or by third parties, the current owner will step in and take on all the obligations relating to such party claims. And what they've done is that the indemnification obligation is not only binding on the current owner, but it's binding on any person who buys any portion of the 50-acre site. So once the town buys the property, it's going to be subject to that indemnification obligation, which means that if these parties who have been indemnified against have a claim by a third party or by the state, then the town, as well as the current owner, have to step in and be responsible for all claims and costs. Now, as you know, we expressly stated to the seller that we would not purchase the property with this indemnification obligation in place. And the sellers, finally agreed that we would enter into separate agreement with the sellers, saying that if those parties have a claim, then the seller will step in and take care of those problems itself. And so these third parties have the right to have to go against the current seller and exhaust their remedies against that current seller, before it can come to the town. And so one of the obligations, one of the conditions to the town buying the property is that we enter into a very satisfactory and ironclad indemnification agreement, which protects the town from claims from those third parties. So that if these third parties sue the town can go after the seller and say that, no, it's not us that's responsible, it's you. You have to fix this problem. And so we are working on this agreement, and it's in good form. We're going to finalize this agreement by this Friday. But the purchase is contingent on us reaching a satisfactory agreement, and I'll be presenting that for your review in a few days. The other condition is also that the seller has an insurance policy, which is an environmental insurance policy, so that if these parties who are entitled to protection bring this claim against the seller, then the seller can go after its insurance company. The coverage is $5 million, and it runs to 2030. So the town agreed that we would buy this property only if we were added to that insurance policy. So that's a condition to the sale. And those are the major conditions that have to be satisfied before the town buys the property. All these conditions, we said, will be satisfied by March 15th. And mostly there are just standard provisions that are customary in purchase and sale agreements, but those are the substantive terms of the deal. If you have any questions, or if I could discuss any particular provision that you have in mind, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Any questions from the board?
I did have just one quick question, and not being a lawyer, I don't know if this is, required or not, but I was looking through this and I noticed in section 11.1, G, it talks about, the section 11 is about our obligations by closing, and then 11.2 is the seller's obligations. In G, under our obligations, a counterside town indemnification agreement I didn't see that as being also a signed version under 11.2 for the seller. Is it customary that it would only show under our section as an obligation to have a countersigned agreement, or would we also see that under their obligation?
It is expressly stated that they have to sign it, because if you look at
A lot of language in here. I might have missed it somewhere. So.
Yeah, and countersign means that we're the second
well,
signature on it.
Right, I'm just hoping that, right, but do you think that a signed version, if we're gonna be that specific under it,
I am sure that we'd have no problem including that. That was certainly intended and agreed to. So
Okay.
If that needs to be added, I'm sure we can add it.
That was my only question. Thank you.
Sean, I have a couple questions.
Sure.
Hi, Sharon. Thank you for making yourself available tonight. A couple of questions, and apologize, wasn't able to get these to you before tonight's meeting. So there are a couple sections, specifically Section 2 and 11A, where there's a reference to federal funds. I was a little surprised to see that. I would have thought it would have read municipal funds, but I didn't know, again, in the legal world, if municipal equals federal. So I'm just wondering if that's correct as written.
It says immediately available federal funds. That means it's just in the currency, the U.S. currency.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
As opposed to chickens or something else. Okay, I was thinking.
Town currency.
Or town currency. No, really, I was like, federal funds, I immediately went to ARPA, and I'm thinking, we're not using ARPA, and so, okay, thank you, boy, I feel stupid now, okay.
No, it's a good question.
And there are several places in the document, and again, I've just never seen this before, where, we see the traditional, like A, B, C, but there are others where it says X and Y. Is that standard legal framing of information? And an example is, I presume you do that because it's within a paragraph or something, but I hadn't seen that before.
Yeah. It's just that you go through A, B, C, and then if there are different provisions, you don't want to start with a D because it doesn't follow.
There just wasn't anything, somewhere between H and X, and I assume, though, that you guys put those in there in order to group information so that it doesn't conflict. You've answered my question. Thank you. In Section 5.3B, in the last sentence of that section, there's a reference. I didn't understand the last sentence. Specifically, it references subsection B.
And it should reference subsection C, which is the extension provision.
Okay, so that's something that would, so I don't know if the version we have is corrected.
I'm not sure. I can send it to you if you don't.
Okay. And that does make sense, but, so that should be C.
Correct.
Okay. A couple more questions here. In 7.1.C, there's a reference to Boston Sports Club being the only tenant. Correct. Currently, there is another tenant on the first floor. I don't know if they are a sublessor to the Spirit Halloween. My understanding is they wrap up the store around November 1st, but they are another tenant, and I guess I'm just wondering why they wouldn't have been listed.
I wasn't aware that there was another tenant, but it does say that the property is to be delivered free and clear of all occupants. So, it could be referenced, but it doesn't have to be referenced because there's no obligation for the town to accept the property with tenants.
Okay, thank you. This one had my curiosity. Section 7.6, the as-is section, why is it bold and capitalized throughout the entire thing? It was like a screaming neon sign.
That's how the sellers intended it to be, because they want to make sure that the town understands that the town is basically buying the property as is. And they have this long, it's standard in commercial transactions to have this long, boring
Yeah.
provision saying that
Okay.
there's no way that we're going to hold them responsible for anything other than what's set forth in the agreement. That's
Sure,
what it's
but to your point then, there are provisions and language in the agreement that should we discover something during inspections or what have you, there is a room for conversation, notice to the seller, and conversation about that. That's not to say that they would agree to adjusting the price or anything, but there is an opportunity for that dialogue.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
And you have the absolute right to terminate if there are any conditions that you object to.
Yep, okay.
And you have right to terminate for any reason or no reason.
Okay, thank you. Getting to the end of my questions here, so thank you. Section 8.1D as in dog, the second paragraph, specifically references our town manager by name, but then is followed by, in no events shall such individual have any personal liability hereunder. I didn't know the board would be signing this agreement. Why wouldn't the board specifically be called out, or why is Christie called out here?
Because the town is making representations on warranties, and the standard practice is to limit the parties who are making these representations and warranties. And so I usually select the town manager or the town administrator because it's one person, and since Christie has been engaged in this transaction right from the beginning, I rely on her representations and warranties so as to limit anybody else who has knowledge and that could be imputed to the town or to the select board.
Okay,
So
I mean,
then making sure that each one of you that can make those representations, I base it on Christie's.
okay, thank you. That's helpful. Okay, and then finally, in section 13.1 and 13.2, again, I don't have the JD after my name, so it probably is just my understanding, the way I read them. So 13.1 starts with termination by seller, but then it talks about what the buyer may do. And it felt like to me like 13.1 really should have read termination by buyer, and conversely 13.2 should have been termination by seller. But again, maybe I just don't understand how the language within those sections. It feels like the header is wrong, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, if you prefer 13.2 that's termination by seller to come first, we can reverse that.
No, that's not what I'm saying. So in section 13.1, the header is termination by seller, and then event.
I see what you mean. I see. Yeah, I see what you mean. This is when the seller fails to convey. So it should be termination by buyer upon seller default. That's what it's supposed to mean.
Can you repeat that again?
It's termination by the town on seller default.
Okay.
So I think that's the way the intent is of that heading. It should be termination by, the 13.2 should be termination by seller upon buyer default.
Okay, and conversely, 13.1 should be termination by buyer upon seller default.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And I'll send you these changes as soon as we finish.
Okay. And then, I'm sorry, I do have one final question, although I think it was in the notes Christie handed to us shortly before our meeting. So the REA is supposed, it says in the agreement, it was supposed to be signed by October 8th. That is being extended to November 1, correct?
That's correct, and that's because it's going to take some time to negotiate and to agree to those terms. So
Yep.
the seller preferred that we do it after town meeting.
Okay, and so therefore, does the section that it's referenced, and I forget what that is, does that need to be modified in the final, in what we're signing? Because it says October 8th right now.
Oh, I'm sorry, then you must not have the the seller extended that date to
Okay.
November 1st.
Okay, yeah, it sounded like it was mutual. I just wanted to make sure we were signing what was current.
No, then I'm going to send you the revised date.
Okay. Thank you. Those are all my questions. Thank you, Sharon.
All right, thank you, Shelby. Anybody else? Good?
Nothing.
Nope, good, thank you. All right. So at this point, with no further questions, there is a motion to be provided, correct?
It's within the email that you received. What's that? In the updated packet. Yeah, it's in your updated packet, so it's within that document.
Okay.
Is that what she printed for you? That's the vote, right there.
Okay, I have it right here.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Christine.
Okay.
Okay. I move to enter into a purchase and sale agreement with BSC RE Owner LLC to purchase an approximately 2.58 acre portion of the property with the building known as 1500 Union thereon located at 12 Union Street for consideration of $8.8 million, subject to town meeting approval and the satisfaction of the other conditions set forth in the purchase and sale agreement. And I have a question, should I say with amendments as discussed? Because what we reviewed was different than,
Yeah.
with amendments as discussed.
That's correct.
Okay.
Second. Okay. All those in favor? 5-0, 5 being present. All right, thank you. Next on our agenda, Sharon,
I'm sorry, do we sign that tonight then?
Yeah,
Once we have the current copy?
Well, we have the.
I will send it to you in a few minutes.
Okay, yep.
Okay,
We have the signature pages
Yeah,
here.
perfect.
all right. Sharon, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Much
Thanks.
appreciated. See you Monday.
See you.
Bring the candy.
Okay, on to our next agenda item, pardon me, presentation of municipal aggregation contract renewal. Our Assistant Town Manager.
Yeah.
I just play an attorney on TV.
That's good. A lot of legalese.
No, sorry, Alan.
You gotta get it.
Credit.
It's good, make life easier. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on our municipal aggregation program, Westborough Power Choice. Specifically, I'm here to talk about some upcoming changes. As the board may recall, back in April of this year, we worked with our energy supplier, our consultant. The current contract that we have through our municipal aggregation program will end in November. We did go out to bid, have a new contract and a new supplier that will take over in November. So just stepping back, a reminder, Westborough Power Choice is an electricity aggregation program. It's available to all residents and businesses, and it's effectively group buying power. So the town has engaged in, it was 2016, this was approved. We've had several contracts. The last two have been with a supplier, Dynegy. Our next supplier, we will be changing to Direct Energy. They were the most favorable pricing. So one of the things that residents need to be aware, and they will be receiving a notice from the supplier, there will be changes, both in terms of what you see on your bill, in terms of who's supplying the energy, as well as the pricing. One of the things that we have benefited from under the 3 years with Direct and with Dynegy, when we went out to bid for that 3 years ago, the market was very different than the electricity market today. So residents and customers will recognize some price increases. However, these rates are still favorable relative to National Grid's winter rates. One thing I want to stress, this program is heavily regulated through the Department of Public Utilities at the state. When we talk about the program, we talk about this affords 24 months of price stability. Right now, our rates are favorable relative to National Grid's rates. Our rates will stay in effect for a 24-month period. National Grid typically changes their rates twice a year. One of the things that I wanted to point out is that we have all of the updated information available on the Westborough Power Choice website, which is available right by clicking onto the town's homepage and right down, you'll see the big logo. There is a lot of information on this webpage about the program, about what to do if you want to enroll, what to do if you want to make a change. The one thing I will stress, anybody who is currently participating does not need to do anything. Direct Energy will automatically enroll everyone who's currently participating into the program at their current plan. One of the benefits of our offering, I just want to pull this up. We offer 3 different plans. We have a standard plan, a 100% green plan, and a budget plan. Each of these reflects a different mix of renewable energy. They all meet the state's minimum requirements. So the budget plan has the lowest percentage. That still meets the state's minimum requirements. That is the least costly. We have the 100% green, which is 100% renewable energy. And then our standard plan is something that we introduced with our last contract 3 years ago. I'm sorry, the budget plan was something we introduced 3 years ago, but the standard plan provides about 42% of renewable energy. So again, if someone's currently in the standard plan with Dynegy, they will be moved into the standard plan with the Direct Energy, and they will see their rate increase up to it will go up to 14.32 cents per kilowatt hour. One of the things I want to point out on the website, there is 2 things. There is a sample National Grid bill, and it explains what you're looking at when you look at your bill. And it shows you where your supply charges are reflected. And that's where individuals will see a change. And it has previously read Dynegy. It will read Direct Energy with the November meter read. But one of the other features on this website, there is a calculator. So individuals can look at the different plans, try to estimate different energy costs by going with different plans. Obviously, it's hard to come up with any sort of average because this is really based on your individual energy usage. So 2 points, the supplier will be sending out a mailer directly to current program participants. So residents will see something land in their mailbox in the next day or so. Additionally, if anyone has questions, they can either review the website or there is a customer support number. This is staffed by our energy consultant. They have a wealth of knowledge, and they can also assist if someone's considering or interested in opting up or opting down. The one thing I do want to mention, at any point in time, you can opt up or opt down within the program. You can leave the program for no penalty. And you can certainly, if you're not currently enrolled, you can call the customer service number and enroll.
Now, if you are in the plan and leave the plan, you then cannot come back.
You can go back. You are not necessarily guaranteed the contract rates. It may be a different rate. That's just a function of how the program works in pretty much all of the contracts. That's not unique to us here in Westborough.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'll just point out that the fixed rate for National Grid residential service from November 1st, 23 through, looks like July 31st, 24 is at 18.213 cents. So it is almost 4 cents per kilowatt hour more than the standard rate on the plan. So it's significant savings. So when you get those letters in the mail that say change your electric provider, and
Don't do
it
it.
gives you a really cheap rate for the first month, but it locks you in and it goes up
But
significantly.
Just to point out, future savings cannot be guaranteed.
No,
because
future savings
National-
cannot be guaranteed.
National Grid changes its rate multiple times a year.
Future savings can't be guaranteed because National Grid changes its rate monthly, although most people are on 6 month.
And the current
Periods.
rate that they just set, their winter rate, traditionally it's been set for 6 months. The rate
Yeah.
now is set through August. It's actually set for 9 months.
Yeah. So, but be careful when you get the advertisements in the mail or the people call you on the phone saying, change your plan, because those deals seem too good to be true, and oftentimes when you look at the rates, it's absolutely not. It can get you significantly even more expensive than the National Grid rates.
And if anyone has questions, whether they're in the program or not right now, don't understand their bill, grab your bill, call the customer support line. You can walk them through what you're reading on your bill, and they will help you understand what it is.
Just a quick question, are these, just remind me again, are these the new direct energy rates, or are
Yes.
these are the new, okay.
Yep, these are all about 3.8 cents per kilowatt hour higher than the
So
expiring
this has all been
contract.
updated to
Yeah,
show
so
that it's-
residents should expect in the plan that
Yeah,
the
yeah.
rates will
Yes.
go up. But as Alan said, they just won't go as
Well,
much
it's
as.
high,
yeah.
exactly. Yep.
We saw this last winter with National Grid's rates peaking above 30 cents a kilowatt hour. We actually had the utility directing people to call the town to enroll in the municipal aggregation program because our rates were so much more favorable.
Kim, could you just for the viewing public, show folks where the customer support component is and
Yep.
what number they should call?
Sure.
Thanks.
So it's right, on the website, there's a customer support on the bar, but that phone number is 1-844-483-5004. If anybody has trouble, they can certainly call our office, call the town manager's office, and we can connect you to the customer service folks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Any other questions? No? All right.
Thank you.
With that, we will move on to item number 4 on the agenda, consideration of support for House Bill 3852, an act supporting electrical load aggregation programs in the Commonwealth.
Can I just walk, Chrissy, while you're pulling that up, is it like the town's Facebook page, are we also putting that information out about the Power Choice updated contract?
Yeah, we're putting it all, we're doing it here first and then.
Yeah,
we're
no,
doing-
of course, yeah, okay, I just wanted, all right, thanks.
So you have in your packet a request to support the House Bill 3852. You have the full text of the bill within your packet as well, but we were provided this. We have a consultant that works with us on this community electrical aggregation program, Peregrine, and so they've asked us if we're interested to sign on with other towns to this letter of support for the bill. So two of the things so this is really specific to the DPU process related to aggregation programs. So two of the things that they highlight that this bill will do, speed the process for DPU review of aggregation plans by establishing a time limit of 90 days. Currently, it's taking nearly 3 years to review aggregation plans. And then substantially increase municipalities' flexibility in operating their program. So currently, they regulate all elements of the program down to very small details. Legislation would divide aggregation programs into 2 components. One is structural elements, so the organizational structure and price setting, and then the implementation elements, so percentage of renewables, things like that. The structural elements will still need to be included in the aggregation plan approved by DPU, but implementation elements would not need to be included. So really just efforts to streamline these processes so that municipalities can move, can continue to offer these and make adjustments that are appropriate for their community. So there's a letter within your packet. We have it ready for you to sign. Really, they'll just add Westborough to the names of the communities that are in support of this bill. Oh, and sorry, sustainable. Maybe you were going to say that. I'll let you. Go ahead.
I was just going to mention that, and I see Pete's here in the audience, that Sustainable Westborough did vote on this unanimously, so for support.
All right. Thank you very much. Yes.
So just a question I have to that second piece about the difference between the structural and the implementation. So if I looked at what we just went through, implementation would be those 3 terms that we had: standard, budget, and 100% green. Is that correct? So that basically we could negotiate and have more than that or whatever. Is that what that piece represents?
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. So basically allowing municipalities to determine what they wanted in terms of those components.
Right.
Perfect. I like it when we have more control, so that's good.
Would you take a motion?
Sounds good. Thank you.
So I move to approve the town signing on to a letter of support for H3852, an act supporting electrical load aggregation programs in the Commonwealth.
Seconded.
All right. All those in favor? 5-0. Next, we have our annual request to install the poppy display in honor of Veterans Day.
So we didn't ask the proponent to come tonight because you've approved it each year, but just as a reminder, she does a nice display of poppies by the horse trough on the Rotary, as well as a sign in honor of Veterans Day. And you have photos of those in your packet.
So I would move to approve the request to install a sign, poppies, and flags in honor of Veterans Day in the horse trough section of the Westborough Rotary from November 6th through the 12th as presented.
Seconded.
All those in favor? 5-0. Thank you very much.
I would just comment that just looks great, and it's something that I think represents Westborough very well. So I appreciate this coming before us, but appreciate us as a board supporting it as well.
And their work of doing it.
Yes.
Yes. 100% agree. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda, item number 6, discussion to consider town clerk as an appointed position. We received a letter from a citizen who will come forward and discuss his proposal.
Good evening.
Hello.
My name is Dexter Blois, and I'm a resident at 23 Deerfield Way, the Walker Meadows in Westborough. I've been a resident in Westborough my entire life, so far anyway, and family before me, generations before me. So my letter, I read the letter, you all got a copy of the letter, but for the benefit of the public, so that they know what we're talking about here. Dear Mr. Keogh and members of the board, this is regarding the town clerk's position. The letter is dated 7 August 2023. Having been involved in town government and having served as town manager not only in Westborough, but also other towns, it comes to my attention that the town may face a dilemma sometime down the road. That dilemma would be created by an unexpected vacancy in the town clerk's position. As you are all well aware, the town clerk is presently an elected official of the town. With the recent retirement of the former clerk, Wendy Mickle, you were able to appoint a Westborough resident to that position, which Debbie Ledoux handily won in a subsequent election. Make no mistake about it, that appointment was a wise one. Ms. Ledoux was well qualified to take over the position. However, at this present time, there is no one qualified to assume the town clerk's position. The assistant town clerk, just recently appointed, doesn't have the needed experience, and while he might be able to fill the position temporarily until the next election, he would not be able to be elected to the position because he's not a town resident. The discussion of electing versus appointing the town clerk has always been controversial. However, it needn't be if presented clearly and succinctly to the voters. The town clerk's position is ministerial in nature. The town clerk must follow state law in all aspects of the job. The town clerk does not set policy other than that within the operation of the office itself. And that difference, policy setting versus ministerial is administrative, is what charter commissions and committees have long used to determine whether a position should be elected or appointed. As it stands now, if/when Ms. Ledoux leaves office, the only qualification for her successor is that the person have popularity. That to me, be able to gather more votes than any other wannabe candidate. That to me is hardly the type of person we would want in such an important position, which currently pays in excess of $100,000 a year. For that amount, the town should expect to get a qualified candidate with knowledge of and experience in the position. In other towns in which I served, the town clerk was appointed. The town clerk, as I mentioned previously, is a manager, not a policy setter. Those towns chose to have the town clerk appointed by the town manager, and so reflected that in their respective charters. Now is the time for the board, as the executive branch, the Board of Selectmen, as the executive branch, to bring this issue back to the voters. As you know, under home rule, the board can ask town meeting for authority to petition the legislature to make this change. Ms. Ledoux is doing a yeoman's job, and I'm certain will continue to do so. But to think her successor might have no experience, yet be elected, is scary. This position is critical to all of us, especially with the upcoming national elections. I'd be happy to discuss this further with the board, should you have any questions, publicly, privately, here, or wherever. I can speak to some of my experience with charters. I was on the elected charter commission here in Westborough back in the 70s. And we went through the deliberations for this and other positions that were elected to be, whether they be appointed or not, and we opted not to make drastic changes, which we thought that might be at the time. I've also served in charter committees, and I've worked with a consultant who does charters, a lawyer, that is, and I'm not sure that he's still alive because this has been 30 years ago, that did charters, and he was a guru in home rule charters in Massachusetts. So I've got some experience. I'm happy to talk about it. What can I say, Mr. Keel?
No, Mr. Boyce, thank you very much. Any questions?
So I would just say I appreciate you bringing this forward. I had an opportunity to meet Mr. Boyce, and I am very supportive of this. I think that we've been well served in the past for many, many years with Wendy Mickle as our town clerk, and I think the distinction that has been drawn between ministerial versus policy setting is an important one, and we do have, if you will, precedent in our town as was outlined in the letter. So I would be supportive of the board bringing this forward, and thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Boyce, for bringing this forward. I appreciate your letter and your comments tonight. My question to you is, having that we went through a recent vote at town meeting in regards to town planner and changing that position, and that failed. I'm just curious as to what your research and what your years of experience might lend in regards to if there's a need for a certain level of autonomy for the town clerk to be either under town manager or appointed by the board directly. Do you have any opinion?
Well, where it's a manager position, those usually fall under the town manager to appoint, because it's part of the town manager's circle of friends, I guess you circle, well, however you want to call it, the
Sure.
team, part of the team. And autonomy, I don't understand why there needs to be autonomy in the town clerk's office. The town clerk has to follow state law. There's no deviating from
Sure.
that. And one step out of line and everybody's beyond the town clerk's case. So I don't see any problem there with it. And I can't tell you exactly how many towns have elected versus appointed town clerks, but I worked in Westborough, in Sutton, and in Ashland as the town manager, was the town coordinator in Westborough then, but the town manager in the other two towns. And in Sutton and Ashland, the town manager appointed the town clerk. And those are new charters, so there wasn't any argument as to having that done. And I think you can make the point that you've got a person elected to the position over which basically nobody except the voters, 3 years later, have any control.
Yeah.
That person gets 100,000 plus whatever the going rate is then. Town meeting sets the salary, so you can't do anything about that. That's what town meeting said. The person could be Martha's Vineyard for the summer, and you never see them.
Right.
And they still collect their salary.
Yeah.
That to me is criminal, but it's certainly able to do it if there's somebody got elected.
Yeah, it is a unique position. I am supportive of certainly bringing this. I think the timing is right. I think your letter is bringing it forward is appropriate. So I really do appreciate your time and thought on this. Thank you.
Timing in life is everything.
Yeah.
Yes, Ian.
Yeah, just a couple comments, and Dexter, thanks for bringing this. I know that our former town clerk brought this forward, and it was something that she was supportive of as well. I think just to Board Member Welch's comments, and I was supportive of the planning board, actually, the planning director being appointed too, but I think a big difference is that there is an elected planning board
Right.
that's there. In this case, there is no elected
Nothing.
body that oversees the town clerk. I think
Correct.
that's a huge difference there. The concerns that Mr. Blois brought up are my concerns, and should be all our concerns. I think we've been lucky in Westborough with elected officials for the most part. I do remember, I'm sure you do as well, that we had an elected planning board member a number of years ago, because there were folks that ran that was not qualified or should not have been in the position, and it was tough to remove individuals there. And in this case, yeah, it's appropriate. We've been lucky to have great town clerks with Wendy, Nancy Andriga before that. My classmate Debbie too, who was phenomenal, as you said. So sitting in the back, but I think it's time. I supported it before. I would absolutely support it, because I think you bring it up. It is a position that we need, but it is ministerial in nature. And if we didn't have a qualified candidate and it went to an open vote, it would be a popularity contest, as you said, and it should scare us, and it should scare the community, because it could be someone that is completely unqualified, and once they're elected, it's very difficult to remove them. So,
And you point out, I know just what you're talking about on the planning board, and that was disastrous.
yes, it was.
It really was. And the only recourse is a recall, and recalls are very difficult to accomplish.
Yes. So thank you for bringing this forward. I am, as well as was heard here, I'm extremely supportive of moving this forward, and I think we as a board should do that.
Well, I'm supportive of moving forward and discussing it. I'm curious to know, in communities where the town clerk position is appointed, we have multiple levels of appointment. It can be a town manager appointment, it can be a town manager with concurrence of the select board, it could be a select board appointment. It'd be interesting to see how that falls in other communities, and the pros and cons for this particular position into one of, if we're gonna make the change into one of those models. I'm not sure we need a charter review committee for this. But it's something we may want to consider for more community involvement and engagement. I don't think it would necessarily change, given the level of support I'm hearing, I'm not sure it would change the recommendation, but it would foster more community involvement and support in the decision. So.
I guess I would be certainly in favor, if it's within the board's purview to moving this forward, that we do it. I think there's too much at stake. We see it in many communities, and again, Westboro's been fortunate around elections. God forbid Like, I just don't want to put that at risk. And so I would be, I mean, I agree with you, the comparison of other communities. Sort of my thinking was, as we have with other positions, town manager's appointment with the board's concurrence, I think that strikes a nice balance.
Just a question, 'cause you brought up the point on kind of the process there. I'm just curious, does the charter change require a charter commission, or is it just we would create a warrant article with that change and look for it to be voted on the floor?
It would be a warrant article
On floor, okay.
that would get voted on the floor to petition for the change.
That makes sense, so we don't need to go through that bigger process.
Yeah, I think if there are broader, if we were talking about changing our form of government, that is absolutely, I think,
No,
yeah.
Yeah, I mentioned it as a possibility to discuss because there have been some other charter changes brought to the floor of town meeting, and at town meeting, it's been, well, why wasn't there a charter review committee?
Yeah.
So if we don't feel one's necessary, we should be stating that and why
Yes.
up front.
Good point.
So,
Okay. Now, Mr. Blaze, thank you very much for coming forward and reminding of this. I know it's been something I think that's been discussed in the past.
would you like to recognize him?
Oh, certainly, our town moderator would like to join you.
Come right down, John.
I know we've already probably used up.
Excuse me,
Yeah, I'm
name
John
and
Arnold,
address?
251 West Main Street, not talking as town moderator. I would encourage the select board to pump the brakes a little bit on this idea. You've heard a letter from one voter with a particular point of view. I want to remind the select board that back in 2008, which admittedly is 15 years ago, everything is worth talking about. I will send you the extract later, but our final report of that group of which I was on, the group voted to recommend that the town clerk stay in elected position. And I think the nuanced part that hasn't been captured tonight is that in addition to all the administrative tasks, the town clerk oversees the elections. And there was a lengthy discussion, I can't pull up, I don't have the minutes in front of me right now, but there was a lengthy set of discussions that led to the decision for the group to recommend that it stay in elected position because they felt that there should be no political influence and no worry about appointment based on how the elections are run and how they are undertaken. So obviously, a lot has changed in our country in the past 15 years. A lot has changed in our town in 15 years. It's worth discussing what this should be, but I don't think it's a slam dunk that it's strictly administrative. I don't think it necessarily should be appointed by a town manager who doesn't belong in town. It's somebody who runs our town elections. And I think there should be some effort on the select board, if they want to discuss this again, to actually have a group discuss it thoroughly and not make a decision in 15 minutes on whether we should go ahead with changing something as important as changing one of our elected officers. So I will send my own letter with some of this background information, but I would just suggest that it's not as straightforward as it may seem based on one letter and one 15-minute discussion. Thank you.
Okay.
So I think
Thank
you
you.
did ask for additional information, so that would come up at a future meeting.
And I'm happy
Thank
to
you,
work
John.
with whomever to gather that information or to put something forward.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you both.
Yeah, and Sean, I was just gonna say, I mean, our thing was, discussion, I think, in our packet was to find consensus on next steps. I think I've heard from the board that there's interest in bringing this forward, discussing it more, and I appreciate the comments, but I do think that we should put it on future agenda and I allow for public comment. I'm not sure as well, but we should probably discuss it further as we hear comments in the community about putting a full charter review committee together, because it's one piece of the charter. But I think it is worthy of discussion further and to see the comments and allow for comments from the town. I do hear Mr. Arnold's comments there too, but I think some of the thoughts about how we, if we were to move forward, how we might structure it in terms of concurrence of the board, whatever, does put some power under the elected officials as well. But I think something that we publicize and put in a future agenda for discussion. But it could be something that we do and potentially consider for Springtown meeting if we get those discussions that happen in the next few months.
Yeah, I don't think, we're certainly not taking a vote here.
No.
What I hear is interest in moving this discussion forward.
Correct.
And it's great to get opposing viewpoints on this evening. So, gentlemen, thank you both. With that, we'll move to item number 7, lead service line inventory update from our Public Works Director.
Okay, good evening. I'm going to provide a brief update on our lead service line. We've talked about it. This inventory that has to be done by next year. It's a mandate from the EPA. And there's been a couple of different sessions where we've mentioned it tonight. I just want to show a few of the tools that we're using to ultimately share the information that we're going to be asked to share. So this is a dashboard that will be available to the public that we'll be using to display data that we capture. So these numbers at the top will reflect the total number of service lines that we have. So a service line, if you recall, is basically the line that gets the water from your house or from the street to your house. And there's some sort of midpoint in between, which is the valve, the curb stop that turns the water on and off to your house. And so the town owns the portion from the water main to that curb stop, and then the homeowner or the business owns from the curb stop to the house. And so there's two parts, but the whole thing is a service line. So what this shows is based on our preliminary analysis, and this is still being QC'd, but this is really just an intent to start getting this word out, because at the end of this, I'm going to ask for some assistance. And so we're just trying to educate people, make people aware of what's going on, and then ultimately ask for some participation to help us complete this inventory. So these numbers here are a sum that does not quite add up to this, but it's, work with me here, that these numbers here would add up to the total number of service lines. So right now our numbers say we haven't identified any that have lead, so that's a 0. We've identified 106 that are galvanized, and then these 3,315 that are non-lead, and this 2,214 that are unknown. So the number we're trying to figure out is this number here, this unknown. We want that number to go to 0. That's progress on this chart. So this map here can be, you can zoom in and out and find a property, any property in town that has public water from the town. And this icon here will represent your property, and it's two pieces of the pie. So one side is the public side and one side is the private side. And these colors have a legend, and red means you have lead pipes, which we don't want to see. Predominantly, they're blue and gray. So all the gray is unknown, and all the blue are non-lead, meaning no lead. Okay, so and then the yellow is galvanized, and you can go through the legend and find all the other information. But a property owner could go to this site, zoom into their property, see what their status is. So that's kind of the summary. This is what would be the landing page for someone that wants to participate or get information about what's going on, because the requirement is to complete the inventory, but also have that information publicly available to anybody that wants to see it. So you get to this page, there's a QR code that you could scan, which I'll talk about in a minute, and then if you scroll through this page, it just gives you a description of pretty much what I just said, which is the details of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and some additional resources. There's a link to the EPA page if you really want to get into the details of why we're doing this. So there's lots of information, but ultimately it gets us to get people to focus and understand what this inventory is. So you go to your map, and you see that your house or your property is gray, and that means it's unknown, and that's the number that's over here, this 2,214 that we're trying to get to 0. So one way to help us get to 0 is to ask homeowners, particularly, to participate in a survey. So we're gonna make this survey publicly available. We'll have mailings out to customers. It'll be on the website, all the different places. You open up the survey. It takes you probably 10 minutes to complete the survey, which gives us information. So you fill out your name, your address. If you type in your address, it's associated with the database of addresses, so it automatically populates. You click on, 45 West Main Street, and it'll be in the box. It asks for account number, which you can find on your bill. Are you the owner or a tenant? Some information on what you're going to be looking for. So in this case, you're going to go in your house, you're going to go to your water meter, you're going to be looking for the pipe that comes into your house. And so you're going to see something that associates with one of these 4 things. There's some information that describes what those are, so different types of pipe. There's resources on our webpage that link you to, if you want more detail on what types of pipe, you can go to those pages and get that information. If you still aren't sure what to do, you can just contact the DPW. And so you get to your meter, and you look at your meter, and you look at what's coming into your house, and you're going to pick one of these sources to say, hey, looks like a copper pipe coming to my house. I'm going to check that box, and then I'm going to take a picture of it. And as you take a picture of it from this site, it uploads, you submit, it comes to us. So what that does is, step 1 to get us to that 2,214 was a review of all of the data we have in our records that show with evidence what type of water service line you have to your house. All those 2,214 are houses that we don't have anything that gives us a record that shows proof of what type of service line you have. So this is a tool that in many cases, for many people, it's going to be very obvious that their house was built in the 2000s or something more recent than 1986, which is when no lead was authorized or not allowed. And you send us that documentation, and we can use that to update the inventory and then reduce that number from 2,214 to as low as we can get it, which is ultimately what we wanted to get at 0. So this survey and that dashboard should be published hopefully the next week or 2. It was intended to be, this was lined up tonight so that we could do a big rollout, but we have a couple of QC things we're running down. We want to make sure we have it correct when we put it out, but it will be out shortly. There's a brief article in the newsletter about it, and then we'll be broadcasting over all kinds of platforms. We have until October of next year to complete this inventory, and that seems like a long ways away, but that number 2,000, even if we whittle it down to 500, that still means there's 500 unknowns, which means we have to find another way to determine the type of pipe, which could ultimately be we have to go dig something up and look at it, and digging anything up is going to cost us a lot of money to do, so we're trying to, again, get that number as far down as we can based on good evidence to prove that you don't have a lead service pipe. So tonight was really just to provide an update, as I said, make you aware that this is coming out, and for anybody watching, make them aware, so that you should be looking for the opportunity to either see what your property has right now, and it might be already documented and you're no lead, but if you are a property that is unknown, we need your assistance to complete the survey and work with us to help identify what type of material you have in the ground. And that's it, unless there's any questions.
Great. Question, please.
Yeah, sure. Can you go back to the site that had the numbers on it? Being able to read the fine print, when I first saw the unknown and 0 lead, the unknown, I was like, wow, there could be 2,200 homes with lead in them. But the fine print, I think, if I'm reading correctly, is that there's no expectation or not to have known to have lead or GBR. So these are things, you know, we're gonna, through this process, try to determine, right? And then I guess my real question here is on the galvanized, is there anything, having galvanized as its own category, I'm just curious, is there any reason why that's its own category in the scope of this effort?
Yeah, it's because of the potential connection to when it was installed. There might have been, just based on the time period when those materials were used, lead was also used around the same time.
Yeah.
And if the galvanized was downstream of the lead, that there's the potential for leaching. And so basically galvanized is not good, and it's not lead, but it's not good either. So we'll have to address those as well.
Is there any tests that, I mean, I'm also just thinking this through, you know, back in the day before 1986, I'm assuming, you know, plumbers were able to use lead solder, and that's not the whole pipe, right? Physically, you can see the pipe, scratch it, tell if it's lead, but if the solder is lead, is that also in scope here, or is that also something people should be looking for? How would they look for that? I'm just wondering if that's part of this as well.
That wouldn't be in the service line, but it's potentially in your house, in your own plumbing, so you would need to investigate that, you know, through whatever mechanism you want to choose to look at your plumbing if you have a older house that potentially has lead solder.
So somehow, how are we as a town looking at the line from the street to the meter? It's underground. How are we determining whether or not that has either lead piping or lead solder in it?
So the numbers we have now, so those 3,000 that are listed as no lead, that's based on evidence we have of the installation of a service line, and the type of service line was noted in the installation document.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. This is helpful.
Good.
Thank you.
Chris, thank you very much. Exciting, and love that this data will be available for folks. And so just a couple questions. So in the 2,214, are those numbers represented, see if I can ask this the right way, is it like a count of 2 per household, or is it 1 per household? Just I'm trying to, because you have the...
Yep. So good question. That 2,214 represents the entire service line from your house to the water line. So it's the whole circle on the page, not one of the halves, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. And will there be a process as part of that? Or can you talk a little bit about the QC process? Once someone completes a survey, they send a picture. How do we know that they selected the right drop-down and that it's actually correct?
Yep. Well, okay, I said yes because I thought you were asking a different question.
Well, you
in
can
terms
answer
of
your question.
So I'll answer my question first, or what I thought was your question.
That's great.
Which is that as soon as you hit submit, it triggers a notification to an individual with us who then reviews what you submitted and has to accept that change. Once we accept that change, then the data in the dashboard is changed. So we accept that you properly filled out the form,
Yep.
and it appears to be correct to us, and then we accept. The QC of the action, if someone wanted to go in there and add a photo that was not their house, or write something that was not, or click the wrong button or something, I can't say for certain that that can't happen, but the importance of the photo is that we get to look at it.
Okay.
And so, we can see from the photo that, you said it was plastic, but clearly it's copper or something like that, right? The next level of QC would be a visit to the house, if that's able to occur, to verify. But we're trying to avoid 2,000 visits, but certainly there will be plenty of opportunity for us to go out to houses and help people with determining something or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
So this is clearly just step one, it's paper-based.
Sure.
There will be follow-up that will be, someone at the house looking at something
Okay.
if necessary.
Oh, you still have a question?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
sorry. Love it. Form looks pretty simple for someone like myself to use, pretty comfortable with technology. There are going to be plenty of people out there who are tenants or homeowners who are not comfortable with this. What's the approach there?
Well,
And what's the timing of that, I guess, right? So you're going to let this you're getting
That's
this
right.
out, you're going to launch
so
it.
step one is we need to get this out there as soon as we can, so the people that are comfortable with it and willing to do it can just get it done, and then that number changes by some amount, hopefully a lot. And then we have to specifically target those that we have issues. And
Sure.
so, Alma is aware of this, and so we have to work with her, and potentially, we have to do something specific to an
Similar,
audience,
yeah.
and we can help them.
Great.
But the first effort is to just get it out there and kind of get as many as we can, and then focus on that
Yeah, no,
smaller
understood.
number.
Okay, we appreciate your awareness of that, and it sounds like if you need to offer similar little specific pace course,
Yeah.
that you're willing to do that, so thank you. And then I do recall when you initially presented this to us, so there's obviously the benefit to a homeowner, to the town, to identifying, right, if you have galvanized or lead pipes. But then the next concern for someone is, oh no,
Yep.
what if and what's it gonna cost me? So what is the process beyond the inventory? So, or you get that person says, yep, I've got lead pipes, it's very clear, or galvanized, what then?
From the town's perspective, step one is to complete the inventory, which
Okay.
is to be done by October of next year.
Yep,
Then there's a requirement, I don't recall the exact time frame, but it's several years after that date where you have to address your lead pipes. And that means taking them out and replacing it with something else. But if it's 2,000, then that's a lot of money. If it's, 25, that's still a lot of money, but it's probably more manageable. And
Yeah.
so I think we need to get to close to what we think the number is, and then we can come up with a game plan for how we're gonna budget for it and actually execute. Because it's probably, my guess is it's gonna be sort of focused on neighborhoods, because an older part of town,
sure.
or whatever. And so we know if the neighborhood was built in 2000, that it's not gonna be affected. So we're probably gonna have to kind of compartmentalize and then tackle by area, but I can't say that for sure.
I appreciate your caution and subtly telling me don't boil the ocean right now, so thank you.
But if you were to go on here, not that anybody has right now specifically for lead, but if you were to find out that you had something and you didn't want to wait on the town, you could certainly go out and replace, your piece of the service line.
Sure.
Because some people are doing renovations or whatever,
Sure.
and something, whatever you're doing in your house, and so it might just make sense for you to do it then.
And so just a follow-on question then. So if someone were to do that, they clearly identified lead, they submit this, would it be appropriate for them to call DPW and say, and again, I've never had to do that. So I want to replace this. It's a concern to me. I mean, you're not going to do the work, but is there a collaborative kind of making sure it's necessary, needed, it really is lead, a validation process?
So any work on your service line requires a permit anyways, and we get those all the time for a variety of reasons that people replace their service lines.
Yep.
So we're gonna get notified before anybody does any work if they choose to, if it's that specific reason, we're gonna know anyways that they're replacing their service line, and so that will be a discussion that we could certainly have.
Okay. All right, one last question, and I promise. So the 3,315 was part of that validation and evidence-based record, part of our Permit Pro system and all of that?
Yeah.
Or okay, thanks.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and mine was just a comment, and I think what comes out is that this is a good thing that we're doing, and it's so people shouldn't be scared when they see it come out. We're trying to help, and if there is lead, we want to remove it. And it's not a penalty or someone's going to get in trouble because they have a lead service. We want to identify it so we can fix it and replace it. So I would
Absolutely.
just add that on, that this is something, while mandated, it's a good thing. And so we want folks to cooperate with us, but also not be afraid or scared, or as you said, go and take a picture of someone else's house because you don't want to tell anybody that you have fled. No, we want to identify this and fix it
Yep.
going forward. So no penalties there, but please help us out.
Yeah, Chris, thank you very much. Yeah, I think this point was made, or maybe you made this point, that these will probably be bunched in certain areas of town, right, where there's older housing. So were you looking at ways, I guess originally you're talking about a mailing, but potentially what, having folks walking around with flyers and handing things out to really get to the areas where we're going to see the most of this?
Yep, potentially. So the survey is not going to address 2,000 of these issues. It's going to hopefully address a number of them. There's homework that we have to do as well, looking at old plans that demonstrate that things were done in neighborhoods, like water mains were replaced, and when the mains were replaced, that means the service lines were replaced. That's just, so all of this phase is really focused on paperwork, or in the case of the survey, somebody's visual of something. And we've started that paperwork review with these dots that you can see on the screen now through tie cards, which are the documents we use to locate a water main, but there's other documents that we have that have to be reviewed as well. So we're doing that simultaneously. And so that could address a number in a certain neighborhood. If we have a plan that says in 2015 we replaced all these service water lines, then that could check off that neighborhood potentially. But that all has to be gone through and analyzed and put together, which hasn't been done yet.
Okay, well, I think come the spring, if you're sort of not making the type of headway that you had hoped or whatever, this seems like some sort of effort where potentially we could request volunteers to help us support kind of going door to door to help try and close out, whatever shortfall you have, because certainly this has to happen by next October. So please let us know. Please come back.
Okay, thank you.
Sean, I just had one follow-up question. I apologize, Chris, if you said this previously. The survey, I understand, is going to come out later because it's going through QC issues right now. That's fine. Is this website publicly available right now?
No, they'll both come out at the same time.
Same time, okay.
So it's all synchronized.
All right, terrific, thank you.
But my last comment is we wanted to show this because this is using a platform, a GIS platform, ArcGIS, which is what we've recently transitioned to. And so this was created by our collaboration with a consultant for this specific project. But this model of a dashboard is what we're moving towards for a variety of infrastructure that we manage. So this is water lines, but it could be road paving or sewer or trees or something else, and we'll be using this
Very cool.
kind of methodology here to help ourselves track it, but also to help make information available to whoever's interested.
Excellent, thank you.
Looks good.
That's great.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next item on our agenda is right of first refusal for 3 Stagecoach Circle. Would you like to?
You can intro, I'll intro it.
Yes, you can. Why don't you go ahead?
Okay.
There.
So there is a 3 Stagecoach Circle. It's actually unit 11 within a condominium association of 12 units. There is an affordable townhome that is up for resale under the local initiative program. There are options to purchase. The affordable deed rider for this property is relatively new. It's 2015. And so it's technically not a right of first refusal. It's an option. It's a right to purchase. That if the town were to exercise its option, we could either exercise an option to purchase immediately, or if you look through the deed, section 4E sets a priority. The first priority is always an eligible purchaser signs a purchase and sale agreement within 90 days of the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, we'll say HLC for short. the seller notifies HLC, there's a 90-day window in which HLC will market the property and attempt to get an eligible purchaser to sign a purchase and sale agreement. That 90 days can be extended by 60 days, or another duration is deemed appropriate by HLC. Second priority would be the municipality or its designee to make the purchase. Third is an ineligible purchaser. For this property, the affordability of this unit is stipulated in the comprehensive permit. So just to be really clear, no matter which option happens, the unit sells for the affordable price. The affordable restriction stays in place. And that in the future, when it's resaleed, we're back at the same process. HLC will recalculate the new selling price as an affordable unit, and that will be the selling price for the unit. So there's not a risk of this becoming a market rate home in any way. The real issue is if they can't find an eligible purchaser, do you want the unit to be occupied by someone who wouldn't otherwise be eligible for affordable housing, which means it's unavailable to an affordable household until such time as the unit gets resold in the future. So I'm not sure if that's clear.
Can you say that last part again? Because that was,
So-
I was following you right up until
Okay,
that
so
last two
if there's no
sentences.
eligible purchaser
Yep,
and the municipality doesn't buy it,
yep.
it can be sold to anyone, even if they don't meet the requirements for affordable housing. It's still sold at the affordable price. It's still affordably restricted. Future resale is still affordable. We're back in the same process.
I understand.
But a household that would qualify for affordable housing would not be occupying the residence. So based on that, the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust at a special meeting on Friday voted to recommend that the town exercise its option to purchase the unit if an eligible purchaser isn't able to sign a purchase and sale agreement within the 90-day window or any authorized extension.
Still
so-
with that criteria of the affordable,
Right.
the purchaser,
Right.
not someone else, has to
Right.
meet the criteria.
Right, so if HLC can't find an eligible buyer in time, the town or its designee would purchase the property, and then the trust has an interest in the property because we would immediately put it back on the market. And that gives us more time to find an eligible purchaser and work through the purchase and sale agreement.
That's what I was gonna ask you. It buys you the time.
Yeah,
So if that 90 days and extension are exceeded, you guys, Affordable Housing Trust can keep it on the market until you find one for a year or however long it takes.
and given that this property is also being sold by the estate of the owner, who passed away, there's some obviously they're trying to settle the estate.
Of course.
This is a complicated process for the seller, and for the estate, so there's an interest in, not having it drag out for the estate and the executor of the estate as well.
So if we vote to exercise this tonight, but we have to wait the period of time, it just puts us in the queue after that time is exceeded.
Yes, and what could be done this evening, and I believe that's where the discussion will go, is in addition to voting to recommend, the Housing Trust voted to allocate the funds to make the purchase, which we could do as a designee of the Select Board. That would give it to the trust. We would need to hire someone to run the lottery for the property, and to market it for us, but we would turn around and immediately do that.
So I'm confused, though.
So,
So if we vote, sorry, Sean, I jumped in there, but,
No,
That's
you're
okay.
about to ask the same question I was.
yeah.
Okay.
So you talked about, I guess I was a little confused, but are we voting tonight to immediately for the town to purchase it, or is it to go through that process you said of the 90 days plus extension, and then if that fails, for
So-
the housing trust to?
So the recommendation for the Housing Trust was that the town vote to exercise its right to purchase if HLC is unable to find and effectively sign a purchase and sale agreement with an eligible buyer in time,
Okay,
so that the property stay available. Subsequent to our vote, we learned that the select board can delegate that right to the housing trust, so that rather than the select board acquiring the property and then having to wait till town meeting to transfer it to the trust can simply buy it directly. And our authority says we can buy the property and then we can immediately turn around, market, and sell it.
Okay, so the town is not purchasing the house, the Affordable Housing Trust is purchasing the house. We
If we
keep
make that
saying the
motion.
town, but,
Right.
okay.
Well, we would buy it and we transfer it to the Affordable
No.
No, what we're actually suggesting,
You
and the
can't
motion
without a
provided by
town
town
meeting.
council would be to assign and designate the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust Fund as the town's designee.
Right, yeah,
The
because
trust is-
Which would
Okay.
Right.
cause us to have a town meeting.
right, I was
We couldn't
figuring
buy
how we
ourselves. You
we're
can't,
doing
yeah.
with this out of warrant article, right? Okay, got it.
What's that?
How we were doing this without a warrant article was what I was figuring out, but so the Affordable Housing Trust can
Right.
do this.
And we have the funds, it's within our current scope. We've allocated the funds.
How much of the funds, we were just trying to look at that, that's what Patrick,
The price of the house is
I didn't see it.
$228,800 is the maximum allowed selling price.
Sean, can I ask a follow-up
Okay, I'll
question?
double check, yeah, please
Yeah.
go ahead.
somewhere in here.
And this is my ignorance, Alan, but would the Affordable Housing Trust, they would hold out until they found an affordable purchaser? Or could you sell it to, similar to HLC, sell it to a non-affordable?
The motion says for affordable housing purposes. It's specific at
Specific.
the end.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect, thank you.
Good question,
Well,
thank you.
it would have to be sold for affordable because
That's,
not just the motion, but it's the restriction on the deed from the comprehensive permit. It's also our mission. What it
Right.
effectively does is it starts the clock over again.
perfect.
I just got it
um,
today, Alan.
And so the trust technically has 90 days
Yeah.
would have 90 days then to find a buyer, but again, could extend automatically another 60 or further under certain circumstances. If we didn't find a buyer in that time, we could pull it off the market and restart the process again. What most housing trusts do when they have affordable houses for sale is we would hire a housing consultant to help market and run the lottery. I don't expect that we would have trouble finding an eligible buyer. Also note that the comprehensive permit says that this is a 55-plus unit.
So before you had an affordable housing trust, you often chose not to exercise your right of first refusal. And we only had one instance that I remember where they had a difficulty finding a buyer. So I'm not saying it wouldn't happen, but often they're able to HLC is able to find a buyer.
So this is really that stopgap measure that allows for further
Right.
Yeah.
extending to find that buyer if they're unable to find an eligible buyer.
And just to be clear, the motion that we would be potentially making would be that HLC, sorry,
Do you want to see it?
Go ahead.
no, it's okay, then no, that HLC would have their appropriate timeframe, and they must find someone, the owner must meet the criteria, not just that the property must be sold, which is a given, at the affordable rate, right?
Yeah.
So they're
Right.
locked into selling it they would be locked in by potentially our motion.
But we're locked in by the deed.
Yeah, but that's what the
So
sale.
no,
price
so
is.
the motion does not put that
Okay.
stipulation on it. It just assigns your rights to the Affordable Housing Trust.
Right, but I think where Shelby's going, though, is that when Alan talked about the order of prioritization,
Right.
that if we did an exercise and HLC went through their property in the town, we refuse it, then HLC would go ahead and could sell it after that 90 days and 60-day extension, whatever,
Right.
to a non-affordable buyer.
Right, but what I'm saying is the stipulation that I thought you were getting to is not within the motion. The stipulation that the Affordable Housing Trust couldn't move forward until that step had been taken is not within the motion.
But that's what the Affordable Housing Trust voted, is what I heard.
Right, but your motion is, the motion before you is to assign your rights to the Affordable Housing Trust.
Right. But the intention is to let HLC run its process.
I
And that-
understand the intention, I'm just telling you that the motion doesn't say that.
Right, so that's my concern. So I like, I think that the Affordable Housing Trust is very close to us. There's great lines of communication, proven work. The HLC is more than an arm's length away, so to speak, even though the Affordable Housing Trust operates separately and independently from this board, it's still part of Westborough. So I guess I just want to, I'm supportive, I think I'm supportive of what's being asked. If it's in the best interest, certainly, and also with respect to the family, understanding they want to kind of move this along, I get it. So if HLC has sort of the means and mechanisms, the reach to market this as an affordable property, to allow for someone, an owner, a buyer, excuse me, to meet that criteria, great. But I want to make sure that whatever they do only allows, it's deeded in perpetuity to be affordable, but only allows someone who meets the criteria to then purchase it. And so our motion needs to include that. And if we can't stipulate that on their terms, then I would be making a different motion. So that does that make sense, Christy?
I think so.
I don't
Okay.
have the motion.
Well, no, does that make sense what I'm saying? I mean, I don't want to turn this over to a state entity if we can't control kind of ultimately, if you will, the criteria of the person coming in, that being they meet the affordability criteria. If we can't do that, then I would be in favor of exercising our right now to then, through the trust, assign that responsibility, so then the trust takes
So-
that on.
So if the select board votes to delegate to the housing trust has already voted the funding to purchase the property. And it's $288,800, I apologize.
What was it?
It's $288,800.
It's in your packet in the email.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, you got it right. I didn't have the email up front.
You,
Down
I
at the
thought
bottom
you wanted to
after
look at the
deed.
motion.
So in the trust's motion was to acquire the property, exercise the option to purchase if the state is unable to find a purchaser in time. That then puts the deed in the trust's hands. It's then the trust's responsibility. The trust still has to sell the home in line with the affordable housing deed restrictions, which would mean, even though we're the municipal entity, it means first and foremost, it goes to an eligible buyer.
But your
I'm not worried,
your
wait, let me finish.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about the initial pass by, if you will, by HLC of,
Right.
it's deeded affordables, so
Right.
the sale price is what it is, it's in perpetuity. What I'm worried about is the criteria of the home buyer. And so I hear what the trust is saying, like, we're gonna meet that criteria, and I hear what HLC, what happens after 90 days? What if they get like, hey, I don't
So-
believe this is gonna happen, but we can't sell this property, we can't find enough, someone who meets the criteria?
So if HLC isn't going to have someone an eligible buyer sign a purchase and sale within 90 days, and that 90 days is already ticking because
Yeah.
HLC was previously notified, so it's actually unclear how far we are into the 90 days.
Okay.
We're trying to determine that because they received a notice and didn't respond, and then received a second notice and did.
Hence my concern.
So we'll figure. So effectively, if this motion passes, the housing trust would notify HLC that we're exercising the town's right to purchase.
Okay.
if they don't have a signed PNS within the 90-day window,
With an eligible.
with an eligible purchaser. And they can, once they receive that notification, they cannot sell to an ineligible buyer unless we fail to sign a PNS with them, which we won't.
Right, and you don't have to put that into the motion.
It doesn't have to be in the motion because
because-
it's stipulated in the deed.
And-
that That's
and
how the
we're
process
just-
works.
And that notification process
Section
happens-
40 of the deed
Okay, thank you.
stipulates the order of priority and who gets to buy the property.
Okay.
And so long as the trust is the select board's, is a town's designee, notifies EOHLC that we're exercising the right to purchase, we are second in line.
Perfect.
And the fact that we've appropriated funds means they can provide us with a draft PNS immediately. All of that work can be done. And it's simply a matter, if they don't have someone who's gonna sign in time, we can sign. It also means, for example, that if they have a buyer lined up who looks like they're eligible and they're ready to purchase, but they can't physically, they're waiting for the approval from the mortgage lender or something, they're gonna be at 90 days, the trust can step in, acquire the property, and immediately turn around and sell to that individual.
Continue to work with that individual, give it an extra time.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
so,
Okay. So
So-
now the motion is, we are not, the select board doesn't have authority over the Affordable Housing Trust. We are requesting that you do this. You have told us.
We are delegating to them.
Yeah, well, we're delegating, but only because we know they've already agreed that they will purchase it, right?
Yeah.
We are not telling you to purchase it, we're asking you to purchase it. And you've agreed to do
Yeah,
that.
you're assigning your rights to
you're
them.
signing the
Yeah.
rights, the trust has already voted that if given the
accept.
opportunity, we're going to buy it. If given the opportunity and the needs exist, we'll buy it. And we've allocated the funds for the purchase price and all the associated legal and
And the
closing.
great news
purchases.
is this keeps us on our SHI in the right direction. so-
Yes.
Well, it would anyways.
Keep,
It
Well,
would anyways,
Well-
yeah, right.
With the deed, that's an interesting thing.
Right,
If the deed in
that's my-
perpetuity, but if, for example, HLC sells this because they weren't initially able to sell it to a.
It's still part of
It's
SHI.
Still pay to
Even if
SHI.
they're a future
Right.
buyer,
Because it's in the
Right.
deed.
it's still there.
Forever.
Okay,
Yeah.
then I guess.
Right,
we're
but-
just-
That
but
still
to be-
qualifies,
sure.
but
But
it
it's-
basically
We're making sure.
doesn't
But it defeats the
ensure that
It does
it's,
defeat the purpose. I agree. I'm
Exactly.
supportive of this.
Yeah,
I'm just,
yeah.
yeah.
Right.
okay,
I'm
so
good.
then what does that get our motion to?
Well,
Yes.
yeah, I'm happy to get to a motion, but I guess I just want to make sure, I'm reading 4D, and I apologize that I missed this before. So I read 4E, and then it talks about 4D. So I guess it's not clear to me, I'm comfortable with assigning responsibility to the Affordable Housing Trust. We've talked about that. I get it. I'm unclear and uncertain why we wouldn't want to do that now. If you, for lack of, to kind of control the process. Because it does, if I read 4D, it does allow, unless our motion says otherwise, it does allow HLC to sell to an ineligible owner.
So 4B, 4C, and 4D dictate the terms by which HLC can sell to an eligible purchaser, the municipality, if they're exercising their right to purchase, and then an ineligible person. 4E stipulates that the priority has to be eligible purchaser, the municipality or its designee, and then an ineligible. So the fact, if the select board delegates to the trust will, and the town manager's office will notify EOHLC that the housing trust has been designated to exercise the right, and the housing trust is exercising the right.
I see 4C. I've answered my question.
and so
Sorry,
we-
I missed that.
We step ourselves into that second position.
Okay.
The reason we want HLC to do the initial attempt is they have a process in place. They're already preparing to market the property. They probably already know who the agent is who will help them market the property. We'll let that process run. As Christie pointed out, most of the time, they're able to find an eligible purchaser in time and get it signed. If the trust takes it over, there's a cost involved.
Understood.
There's closing costs, and then we have to contract we have to go out to bid and contract with someone, it just extends the time and.
The only thing I would ask is that we received, it would be interesting to know where this is in the process with HLC. Just
We will, more than happy to keep you updated as we
if you
walk
can,
through
if you
this,
can, at a future board meeting, let us know.
at
That would be
future
great.
board meetings.
Sean, I think
I believe he's a
yes, I
representative
think
of the
he's
condo
representing
association.
something. He's raised his hand.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah, I'm
Thank
Bob
you.
Washborough, trustee at,
Oh, could you say that
Speaking
into
of-
the microphone, please?
Bob Washborough, one of the
A little
trustees.
closer, you're gonna have to get closer.
People want-
Sorry,
Right there,
I'm Bob
perfect.
Washburn, one of the trustees at Park Place Condos. And today I had, spoke with the key woman at HLC, and she already has an agent in place, ready to go. As soon as she gets this document from you guys, she will start the process of getting the house sold. And we'd be very annoyed as the board if you guys tried to buy the damn thing. It's not your position to do that. That's the job of HLC.
We just want to make sure they sell it to someone who is qualified to be
I
in the
just told you
property.
that they're gonna do that. You can call them today or tomorrow and find out, because I had a good conversation with one of the women that works there. By the way, the seller, trying to reach somebody who was in a position to help her, couldn't get a call back from another employee. So one employee really shit the bed, if I might say, and this particular woman was terrific. She told me all that I needed to know. She named the organization. She told me the person's gonna be in charge. And they're ready to go as soon as you get the note off to them.
Excellent, and if they get it sold within a certain time
Well,
frame,
that's their
that'll be-
job. We don't know. And
It'll
first,
be
the-
guaranteed to be somebody who is eligible, but if they
that is
don't, then it could be somebody who is ineligible. So we want to make sure that it goes to somebody
Well, then
who
why
is
don't you call
eligible.
HLC and have a conversation and get assured from them?
Yeah.
So we are in communication with HLC, and as we've seen with other affordable homes in the past, the vast majority of time, they're able to find an eligible buyer within the time window. In the rare occasion they can't, what will happen is, if the board votes to delegate its authority, the trust
Yep.
at that point, and only at that point, would acquire the property
Yeah.
and immediately put it back out for sale to find an eligible buyer.
Yeah, and as you told me on the phone
Yeah,
last week,
we
that's a
won't-
very legitimate
Yeah,
process.
Yes.
the trust has
Yep.
no interest in owning
Yep.
the property and renting it out or
Right.
holding it as an asset
Yeah.
vacant. We want it to get it in the hands of an eligible household in accordance with all the deed restrictions as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and that's why I think we would vote tonight, not as a town to buy it, but assign our right to the Affordable Housing Trust, so the trust to do that if HLC is not
Right. Let the
effective
process-
to sell it.
Do you have a low trust in HLC?
Better safe than sorry.
Hmm?
Better safe than sorry.
Better what?
Better safe than sorry. This guarantees an eligible
No,
person.
we have a trust in them that they will do that, and most times they do, but in case they don't,
Right.
their next step, if we say we refuse it, their next step would be to sell it to someone who
Right.
isn't an affordable buyer, but would get a cheap
Right.
price.
Right.
And
So they weren't.
this also gives us flexibility. If the 90 days expires and HLC extends the period by 60 days, and it still doesn't sell, they can extend it again. And that property can be vacant for months and months.
Right.
This gives us the ability to say, wait a minute, you're having trouble, we'll take that on, we'll work. You know, and we'll bring in an affordable housing consultant that does these types of marketing and lottery all the time to
Were
accept.
you
know,
aware that
do-
that HLC has a firm that they deal with and all
Yes.
day, every day?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
Got it.
good.
Thank you, sir.
Would you like,
Thanks.
would you like a motion?
Yes, please.
I'm gonna try. All right.
Okay.
Hang on a second. I move to assign to and to designate the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust Fund as the town's designee to exercise the option granted to the town pursuant to the deed recorded with the Worcester South District Registry of Deeds in Book 54296, page 305, to purchase the property located at 3 Stagecoach Circle, Unit 11, Westborough, for affordable housing purposes.
Second.
Alan got it.
Okay,
All right.
and again, just because we've had lots of discussion, so if someone's watching this and understanding, we, the board, are delegating to the trust. It doesn't mean the trust is going to take immediate action. The HLC will follow its course. The trust will follow that process. This is, for lack of a better way to say it, kind of a stopgap to make sure that it remains with an eligible buyer, that being affordable.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, all those in favor? 5-0, thank you. Next, we have fall town meeting preparation with our town moderator. But if you would like to start, Christie, I don't know if there's any.
Yep, that's great.
I'm just here. You want me to go?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, John Arnold, 51 West Main Street. This time I am talking to town moderator. Just a quick, I didn't know if you had any remarks you wanted to make, but I'll just go over the, just letting everyone know who's watching that the special town meeting is being held at the high school at 7 o'clock next Monday night. Tonight seems like Monday, but it's Tuesday, so it's only 6 nights away, and we'll be underway. The key things, I'm working on getting an updated draft to an infographic like we did in the March. I'm waiting, now that I've got confirmation about the details about transportation, I'll try to get that out so it can be distributed, but as I said in an email earlier today, feel free to distribute the information before waiting to get this infographic out. Key things that people, well, you have already obviously voted on the warrant. It looks like the biggest interest item is, of course, the community center, and thank you for putting it at Articles 3 and 4. So things about the process, other than it being the same as it has been, that people might be interested in, since that seems that it gets a lot of conversation. I've been assured that there will be babysitting starting around 6:30 when people are checking in, and there'll be volunteers there throughout the evening. I have gotten confirmation from the Council on Aging that there will be transportation for people who want it, offered by the Senior Center, if and only if you contact them by noon on Friday so they can work out a transportation schedule. And their phone number is 508-366-3000. After pretty much unanimous support, we're going to try the traffic light again in terms of timing the presentations and the speeches. I have spent time in the summer and fall. I have not found a desktop-sized one that's remote control for the people standing at the podium. So still working on that. I haven't found one yet, so I don't think I'm going to have one in time. But I will try to see if I can have someone sit at the table, or at least I'll speak up and tell the people when the light goes,
How about a
yellow or
mirror?
red or whatever when they're.
Oh, one of those reflecting mirrors.
Yeah, that's right, yeah,
I'll put
right.
on your
Yeah, that's
side
right,
of your
yeah.
head.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes out. In this, I mean, I think we all are hoping against hope that we can get through the 15 articles on Monday night. But I believe Steve Ashley, one of the head custodians at the high school, in one of his email responses to sort of a preparation email, said that the auditorium may be booked on Tuesday. So I think we should be prepared for confirming that and perhaps reconvening on Wednesday if that's actually true. So we should try to confirm that with the school department.
Yeah, I didn't know if, when he said that it's booked, I didn't know if it was booked with the understanding of,
For us, yeah,
or booked.
for something else, yeah.
It
we should
was not clear to
Yeah, so
me.
I will try to, if somebody remembers to call Amber, I will try to respond
I reached out
that.
to Amber,
Oh, you
so
did?
I'll let you know what
Okay.
I hear.
Okay, great, thank you. Because that was the only thing that I was a little confused by that and wanted to know if, because I will try to make sure I have my little piece of paper for whoever wants to make a motion if we're not done. But I do think we are all hoping against hope that we are done on Monday evening. Other than that, it's all going to be the same, 2.5-minute speeches, 10-minute presentations. I've had a couple of committees that have been related to actions both at other town meetings who'd like to give just quick updates at the beginning, so I'll do that. And so my hope is by 7:20 or so, after all the preambles, that we're going on Article 1 or whatever. So, so I think that's, if you think there's other things that people want to know, I'll answer the questions. But I think you're all ready to go. By then, I will be all ready to go. We will have electronic voting in the auditorium. And just in case, because again, we never know whether the community center or any other item will bring out a lot of voters. We will have the gym set up, and I will ask the voters, as I've done the past 2 meetings, that because it's so expensive to have electronic voting, you set up in 2 rooms, let alone 1. I'm going to ask the voters to approve a policy that if we do an electronic vote and we have to have a vote in the auditorium on something where it's a close vote, we'll do a secret ballot in the gymnasium as well. So everybody will have a secret ballot. It just won't be everybody the same way. And I think we'll have it go quicker than last time now that people have been through that process.
And John, just to be clear,
Yeah.
the electronic voting, we only have for one
Right, from
evening.
one night, right, yes, because it's
Whether
very,
it's Tuesday,
it's
if we
very
don't
expensive
finish.
to have for 2 nights, it's very expensive to have for 2 rooms, And it's expensive anyway, and we're still looking into that. We didn't get ourselves pulled together quite for that. Yes, so definitely Monday. And again, thank you for moving the two most likely to be largely debated and the large turnout up in the agenda, so we don't have to worry about that happening, A, later at night, or B, rolling over to a night when we don't have electronic voting. Perfect. Anything else?
John, I may
Yeah.
have missed it, just the number of roving microphones.
Yes, I saw your comment. I'm going to try to talk to Steve Masciarelli about
Okay.
getting some more. Sometimes that's dependent on the number of scouts,
Of
but,
course.
and also, if we can't get more roving microphones, as he suggested, what I will try to do is essentially rotate between, have somebody, if there's people in the audience who don't want to get up or can't get up to go to the microphones, I'll have somebody from the standing microphone speak while I stage one of
Yep.
the roving microphones, then go back and then do
Yeah.
that, just so my goal is always to not have too much, quiet time,
Yeah.
where we're just waiting for microphones.
Yeah, no, and you do a masterful
Yeah, so I'm
job
gonna
of
try- I mean,
kind of working the
Yeah, I'm
room
gonna
that
try to
way.
do that better, even if it means that it's not 1, 2, 3, if it's sitting, standing, sitting, standing, sitting,
Yep.
standing, to make
Yep.
sure we'll do that.
Okay.
But I did make note of that, so thank
Okay.
you for reminding me.
Yep.
I'll actually make a note of that here.
And even if the scouts can be available for, again, those first articles, I would imagine there would be a natural
and
weaning
in
out
worst
of
case, I
that.
will ask for adults to do it if the scouts have
Yeah,
to leave.
sure.
But
I know the
been-
notes have gone out already to the
Yeah.
scouts, so hopefully we,
Yeah, I've been
Get them.
contacted that Mr. Anderson is trying to line up the scouts, and hopefully we'll be there. So that's it. See you on Monday.
great, thanks,
Same
John.
bad time,
Thank you very
same bad
much.
channel. Thank you.
Yes.
So I just put it on the agenda in case there's anything that we wanted to talk about. I'll have to shorten the community center presentation now that I know John definitely has his traffic light. But
If people ask questions, it's okay to give.
yeah. But the board, I'll be sending out all the information that I typically do. You'll be making, there's only 15 articles. I think the board's making about half of them, the motions on half of them, so.
Can I comment just? I was going to do this during issues and correspondence, but since we're talking about town meeting now. So, this board has spoken in favor of Articles 3 and 4. And I thank everyone for being at many of the public information sessions and talking with residents and stuff. I think that some lessons learned from the past. I know we often let the voters have their time at the microphone because we get lots of airtime, but I would encourage members to have prepared comments, whatever you feel, in support of that article, and not hesitate to get up at whatever appropriate time to share those thoughts, because I think that this is, it's that important and we can't assume that everyone has sort of heard our meetings or attended public information sessions. By account, I think we've had somewhere in the nature of maybe about 100 people between the two public information sessions as a ballpark count, but there will be a lot more out there, certainly that night voting. So I think it's important that we speak strongly in our view and why we support that. So.
Perfect,
No, thank you.
I agree.
Any other thoughts? Nope. Okay. On to agenda item 10, request of St. Stephen's Episcopal Church for a Beano Bingo permit.
Would you like a motion?
Just get a motion.
Sure.
Doesn't require further
If you wanna do
discussion?
Yeah, so I would move to approve the application for license to conduct the game commonly called Beano is submitted by St. Stephen's Episcopal Church to conduct the game commonly known as Beano, or substantially the same game under another name, between the hours of 1 p.m. and 6 p.m. monthly on Wednesday at St. Stephen's Episcopal Church at 3 John Street.
Second.
All those in favor? 5-0. Okay. Item 11, request to approve meeting minutes of September 19th, 21st, and 26th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any questions, concerns on them?
Thank you, Sheila.
As
Yes,
always.
thank you very much, Sheila. All those in favor? 5-0.
I hate that we have minutes from 19th, 21, and 26, though. These are meeting too much.
Yes. I think one of those was the tri-board meeting. It was,
Yes.
okay. Let's see now, the town manager's report.
So just as an update, the Main Street Trick or Treat is going to take place downtown on October 24th from 4 to 6:30. In the past, when we had a meeting the same night, because we can't really move it the week before because of town meeting or the week after because of Halloween, we started the meeting at 7. So hopefully we can keep a shorter agenda and start at 7. Related to waste management, we've continued to meet with Harvey's to discuss the program structure for the next contract that would begin on July 1st. 2024. The Waste Management Exploratory Committee is also continuing to meet to work on the development of program options. And then just related to the Sharp building, we continue to meet every other week with reps from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, as well as the Department of Housing and Livable Communities. As of our last meeting, we're still expecting that the shelter at the Sharp building will open at the end of this month. So that's, again, housing 20 families, approximately. In community development, RACS will be hosting a ribbon cutting on Friday, October 27th at 254 Turnpike Road in Westborough. So there'll be a tour of the facility at 10:30 and then the ceremony at 11. The EDC recently voted 901 in support of the purchase of the community center at 1500 Union Street. I should add that the Master Plan Implementation Committee also voted in support, the Recreation Commission, the Planning Board, and then tonight the Capital Expenditure Planning Committee all voted in support of those articles.
Oh, you stole my thunder, geez.
Ian was also going to say. In DPW, the department was involved in a collaborative process to develop and select a DPW logo. So that's printed on the town manager report. So over a dozen ideas and submissions were refined by a working group, which ultimately recommended a design that reflects a connection to the town seal and the Public Works first responder symbol.
Nice job.
Work to rehabilitate the upper reservoir spillway will continue in October and November. Access across the dam between the upper and lower reservoir will be restricted throughout the project. Preparation for winter operations is underway. They're spending significant funding through our budget to maintain the aged fleet of plow trucks. 2 6-wheel plow trucks, which were approved at the 2022 annual town meeting, and 2023 are on order, but do not expect to receive them this year, which is very consistent with all of the vehicles we order. The fire department will see the retirement of 2 long-term employees, firefighter Chris Knight, who served the town of Westborough for 35 years, retired today. Chris has been assigned to the Fire Prevention Division for the last 26 years and has been instrumental in code enforcement, which has contributed to the safety of our community. On October 16th, firefighter Carl Roach will retire as well. Carl has served the community for the last 33 years, and in addition to being a firefighter EMT, he served as a department mechanic for his entire career. Both firefighters have offered a unique skill set to the department, and we all miss their leadership. The fire department was recently advised by Mass State 911 that the town's infrastructure that supported recording radio and phone transmissions would require upgrades. The department was able to amend a recently awarded grant and received an additional $12,987 to procure this critical equipment. Fire department would like to recognize that this week, October 8th to the 15th, is Fire Prevention Week. This year's national theme is Cooking Safety Starts With You. Last year in Westborough, there were 44 fires in homes that resulted from cooking. We encourage residents to visit our social media sites this week and always for safety tips to better protect themselves. In September is a very busy month for the police department with over 2,300 calls for service. The police department personnel also attended the Eagle Scout Awards, Civic Club event, the Handcuff and Extinguish Hunger food drive, Arts in Common, and the Veterans Breakfast and Flag Burning Ceremony. And then we also put out our quarterly newsletter last week in the town manager's office. That's it.
All right, Christy, thank you very much. With that, we go to issues and correspondence of the select board. Take care.
I'll go first because I was already, that Capital Expenditures Committee, we did meet, and apologies for being late because we had a remote meeting and I ran from that to here, but I was a few minutes late. But As Christie said, we did discuss the property, and I think all members commented, but it was a unanimous vote by that committee to support both articles for town meeting. So that's all my updates.
Thank you.
Okay. Brief update. When the Affordable Housing Trust was created, there was a request from the Select Board at that time that we come in and provide periodic updates. We have come up with a reporting system for the financial activity and status of the trust. And so when the Select Board is ready to have us, we are ready to present. We actually have everything current through the end of the first fiscal quarter of September 30th. So you know, we're ready to be placed on an agenda. We would need 7 minutes.
All right.
7 minutes?
I was going to say 5, but there's going to be a question.
We'll keep you for longer than that.
That's all.
Thank you very much.
Nothing for me?
Nothing for me. Yes, no, one thing for me. Just building off of what Christie said, for the trick or treat downtown, so appreciate all the work that's going in. It's great to see some of the decorations popping up in town offices and departments. The Recreation Director, Jen Kirkland, sent out an email seeking volunteers to help with the crossings. So for the community that might want to participate, you can contact the rec department. And I would encourage the board, it's not on our agenda, to dress up that evening. Let's have a little fun. Let's be something other than select people. I'm dressing up, just so you know.
I'm coming in my pickleball outfit.
Whatever you are,
Not shorts,
come
please,
as
not shorts.
come as you want to be, but I think we should have a little fun with it. So I'll ask the board to consider that. No motion necessary.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of items. Thank you to the Cultural Council for another tremendous Arts in the Common. And thank you to the Westborough Veterans Advisory Board for a tremendous job with the flag burning ceremony at Veterans Park recently. We look forward to seeing everyone this coming Monday at town meeting, and I look forward to spirited debate on the community center, and then hopefully it prevailing. But okay. And with that, I will take a motion.
Thank you, Westborough TV.
Oh, and thank you, Westborough TV, as always. Thank you.
I moved to enter into an executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations and contract negotiations with non-union personnel, Todd Minardi. And under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation R.E. Gomez Alvarado versus Town of Westborough, United States District Court, case number 2340008. If the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the town's litigation position, and under Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A7, to act under the authority of the Select Board to approve executive session minutes of September 19th and September 26th, 2023.
Thank you. I declare that an open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the board's negotiating, litigating, and bargaining position. The board will not be reconvening in open session after executive session. Can I get a second to the motion?
Second.
Roll call vote.
Johnson, yes.
Edinburgh, yes?
Welch, yes.
Marshall, yes.
Keough, yes. Thank you very much. Good night.